You're listening to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, where we champion music of all genres, and we believe vinyl is king.
For a dying man, I feel pretty good, I feel pretty good. For a righteous man, I'll do what I should, do what I should. For a fallen man, I'll get up again, I'll get up again. For a dying man, I feel pretty good. Oh, we're born to trouble as the sparks fly high, born to trouble as the sparks fly. It's alright, in the light, I see you glowing. It's alright, in the light, I see you glowing.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Blind Tiger Record Club on air, sponsored by World Vision. I'm David Williams, and as always, I'm here with the show's co-host, Rudy Newman.
Hey, everybody.
So both the podcast and on air are sponsored by World Vision, and on both formats, we discuss albums that are either in the Blind Tiger Record Club's subscription program, which is what we discussed 2 weeks ago on the last show,
Yep.
Or we talk about our Spotlight album and new store editions, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
Yeah. Some other stuff in the store that we think that people need to be listening to or aware of, and some cool vinyl.
Absolutely. And if you missed that episode where we discussed the subscription albums, you should check that out. You can actually still listen to it and stream it at lightning100.com/blindtiger.
Yes, you can.
You know, so the Spotlight album, which we're going to start with tonight, it's really just a release that we pick. We pick one release each month that we're going to showcase, and it wasn't part of our subscription program. That's really the only difference. It's a great album. It's one we feel like you should know about. But it just wasn't in our program.
It's like our honorable mention, you know. It's like our fifth
kind
style,
of. Sometimes it's like, hey, we couldn't get this one.
Yeah, we wish that this was in the program, but for whatever reason.
Well, you know, this is the same format we use on the B.T.R.C podcast. So if you enjoy tonight's show, you can check out other episodes where we discuss, you know, releases that we feel are kind of important really over the last year.
Yep.
You know, the podcast is available on all podcast platforms from Apple to Spotify. And you can also stream it directly at blindtigerrecordclub.com. Just click on the podcast link at the top of the page and you'll see all of the shows that we have, especially all the ones that we're really pushing right now from season 3. So as I said, tonight we're talking about the Spotlight album from November and several new store editions. The Spotlight album this month is the brand new release by singer-songwriter Brent Cobb titled Keep 'Em on Their Toes. Along with the Spotlight album, we'll be discussing 4 other new releases. We're going to discuss I Don't Know How They Found Me, or IDKHOW.
That's right.
Or the way I'm going to refer to them on the show is the I Don't Know.
I call them I Don't Know How.
Yeah, that'd be better. I don't know how.
That's what I call them.
We just definitely have to shorten that.
Yeah.
But their new project is called Razzmatazz. We're also going to talk about the Mountain Goats' new album, Getting Into Knives. And then the last album we're going to talk to, last but not least, is Bruce Springsteen's new album, Letter to You. This is the first to include the E Street Band since 2012's High Hopes.
Get ready.
Well, all right, Rudy, let's get to today's show. Let's drop the needle and take a quick listen to the Blind Tiger Record Club's November Spotlight album and new store editions.
What's the foundation of the stance you're taking? Solid ground or rock and roll. You all drop your ego off at the station. Can't take it with you when you go, you know. Can't take it when you go. You know, can't take it when you go. We're all bellied up at the same table, carrying on and eating crow. So pass the gravy and mashed potatoes. Call it chicken if you don't know, but you know, can't take it when you go. You know, can't take it when you go.
So on September 28th, 2020, Brent Cobb released his third studio album, Keep 'Em on They Toes.
Keep 'em on their toes.
It's really hard to say because it's not...
That's the way I talk.
It's probably
I'm
natural
from Arkansas,
for you.
though.
So you should say this one. As
Keep
we're
them on their
talking about.
toes.
It's really the fourth album if you count his independently released album from 2006. But this is the first time he has released an album on his own imprint.
Yep.
It's called Old Buddy Records, and it's being released via 30 Tigers, some good friends of ours.
Yes. David Macias, what's up?
Look, Cobb's first two albums had major label support on Elektra Records. It was on an imprint called Low Country Sound. And his first album was 2016 Shine on a Rainy Day. That album peaked
Great
at
album.
number 5 on Billboard's Heat Seekers. It was number 16 on folk, number 17 on country. It also received a Grammy nomination for Best Americana Album at the 60th Grammy Awards in 2018. And then all of that ended up driving him to win the Emerging Act of the Year at the 2017 Americana Honors and Awards. So, his second album was released in 2018, really right on the back end of all of that. It was called Providence Canyon. It was critically received very well. It peaked at number 2 on Heat Seeker and number 23 on Folk. And this was a year that saw him really touring extensively.
Yeah,
He
getting out there a lot.
Yeah, he went out on, he was headlining a lot of his own stuff, but he also went out with like Chris Stapleton's All-American Roadshow tour. So, coming back to this album, his current album peaked at number 16 on Heat Seekers and it's number 42 on current album sales.
Got robbed.
He's not quite as much muscle behind this one. It's
a
also
little
a
more
different
stripped
time.
down.
It's a different time too. So, the song that we played at the opening of this was a track called When You Go. You can kind of hear some of the elements that really make him fall in the country, whether it's banjo.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout this record, you'll hear like fiddle, mandolin, things that, people go, oh, well, that's country. But I really think like he's kind of the quintessential Americana artist because he
totally
just blends this rock sound with country. Even though it may still fall on the singer-songwriter side, it's definitely got some rock influence.
And it's like the modern country that you're not going to hear on the radio.
Yeah, correct.
Which for me is Americana.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Another song that really blends kind of that folk singer-songwriter and country element is the title track, which is...
Keep 'em on they
there you go.
toes.
I'll let you just say it.
This is a good one.
See how that just rolls off your tongue?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Look, it was co-written with Cobb's wife, Lane Cobb.
Lane.
And it was
A
written...
pharmacist.
Yeah.
Not a songwriter.
Yeah,
she is a songwriter.
She is now,
don't let me discount her.
Well, it was written as though they were kind of imparting wisdom, to the couple's newborn son. So it's kind of written from that perspective.
Yeah.
But this is the song, Keep 'Em on They Toes.
If you ever grow up, one thing you'll find, most people that you meet just about out their mind. They try to tell you how to live, they try to tell you how to die. They tell you don't get too low, but don't get too high. The best thing you can do is don't listen too close. Walk on to your own beat. Keep 'em on their toes. Keep 'em on their toes, your business out of sight. Make 'em look left if you're gonna hang a right. If the pie's hot, don't let 'em see your hand. Make 'em gotta know what they wouldn't understand. The best thing you can do when the ignorance shows is walk on to your own beat. Keep 'em on their toes if you never grow up.
So both of Cobb's first two albums that we mentioned, they were produced by Cobb's cousin and now legendary Nashville producer Dave Cobb here in Nashville.
Not brother. Like I've spent most of this year and last year thinking that they were brothers for some reason. So it was nice to, do some research and actually find out the truth.
Yeah. Well, on this album, along with launching his imprint, he moved back to his home state of Georgia.
Yep. Georgia was on his mind.
And then he ended up picking a different producer. So he recorded this album with Brad Cook, who has worked with indie rock artists like Bon Iver, Waxahachie, His Golden Messenger.
Yeah. War on Drugs, Sharon Van Etten.
Just a lot
of
of
them.
that would fit in that space
right
that
in
you
there.
wouldn't really see Brent Cobb. So, I mean, this was not only a
Absolutely.
new direction for Cobb, but I also feel like Cook he hadn't really produced anyone like him. So it's
with
kind
more
of
the indie rocker.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a stretch for him. And then they ended up recording it in Durham, North Carolina.
Yep.
So
it's got the country roots for sure.
Cook really just, to me, what he came in and did is he added all these kind of different shades and textures that maybe you wouldn't have heard. I mean, you definitely wouldn't probably have heard if he had recorded another album here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's subtle things. It's guitar tones or sounds that I feel are like
Sparse
different from his first two albums. There's even like some harmonica. It's not strange that he would have a harmonica. It's just the way it's being used might be different. And I think that's kind of really what he was bringing in from that kind of indie rock world. To me, the net result is he really does a great job at keeping Brent's vocals just center place here. And I feel like it's just a more soulful album on some levels. As a songwriter, Cobb's written, before he left Nashville, he had written with a lot of artists here in Nashville. I mean, he has cuts with Luke Bryan, Eli Young Band, Frankie Ballard, Little Big Town, Miranda Lambert, Kenny Chesney. I think even David Nell. Like he's just written with a lot of writers. Some of them in the new country realm.
Little Big Town. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah. He's written on a couple of cuts with them. He's also collaborated some. He had this. I thought it was a great song that he recorded. He performs and recorded with Jade Bird, who we had on our program last year.
She's got a new song out right now too.
Yeah, it was one of our favorite records from that year. It was really outstanding for her first release.
It was
and
awesome.
Then I think it was in the fall. They ended up putting out this song called "Feet Off the Ground," and it's really just a great duo, like back and forth. That some of that stuff I've talked about before. That's not always done anymore.
Yeah.
But
like the call and response, or like Well, on this album, Cobb has one duo that's very similar to that he performs with Nikki Lane. It's on a song called Soapbox. That he actually co-wrote with his dad, I think. Yeah.
My favorite song on this album, however, is a track called "The World Is Ending." It's a bit dark in tone and probably in lyric as well. I think if you really want to get down to it, but I think it's a very compelling song. It really stands out on this album for me. Ironically, it seems to fit the times that we're living in. Specifically if you start thinking about things like COVID. But
absolutely.
It was actually written in 2011.
Yeah.
So he might be a prophet.
He might be.
But this is "World Is Ending."
They say the world is ending again. Everyone's busy defending their sins. I'm just sitting here picking out a ditty. If I can't be cleansed, I gotta stay gritty. This whole world ain't looking too pretty anyhow. Might be time to clean house. Shooting stars out my window, down the barrel of a gun. Ricochet off a moonbeam. Look, there goes the sun.
So in 2016, Lauren Tingle from CMT referred to Cobb as blue collar country. And I do think it's a really good description of kind of what he does. Cobb says that this album is really his most personal. He said that his last couple of albums, this is a quote, he said the last couple of albums have been about people and places, and I wanted this album to be about thoughts and feelings. He says, I think it's pretty easy to look around and see what's going on in the world. With my heroes and the people that I listen to, it seems like a natural progression for me. He also said that this album, was inspired by the spaciousness of classic country albums like Jerry Lee Lewis's 1977 Country Memories.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned a few others in that list as well, but I think those are really good parallels to like kind of what he did here.
Absolutely.
So our members are going to be getting this autographed since Brent was gracious enough to sign all the vinyl for our members.
Autograph.
So we have Cobb's 2016 release, the Grammy-nominated album we talked about, Shine on a Rainy Day.
Yep.
We also have his 2018 release, Providence Canyon.
We got them all.
Both of those are the ones that we talked about being produced by his cousin Dave Cobb here in Nashville. And so
this is a house of Brent Cobb.
That's right. We've got all three. So if you want to pick that up, just swing to blindtagreclub.com and
get them all.
Type in
Search for Brent Cobb.
There you go. Both the podcast and On Air are sponsored by World Vision, and we are so blessed to partner with them on COVID relief efforts. Right now, World Vision is really focused on issues coming from the COVID pandemic, which include hunger, violence, and poverty. As bad as things may seem in 2020, many of us are still extremely blessed. Sadly, however, there are those among us and abroad that desperately need help. The hidden heroes are rising up, helping the most vulnerable to survive, recover, and build a better future. When you are looking for a way to help, you want to look for organizations that can really make a difference. World Vision has been doing this for 70 years all over the globe. It's the perfect way for someone to play a significant role in something bigger. All of you out there listening can be a hidden hero. Go to blindtagreclub.com and click on the World Vision tab at the top of the page. Donate today. If you give, let your friends know that you are fighting the impact of COVID. Tell them you stepped up and they can too. Use hashtag Hidden Hero to share your encouragement. Ordinary people can come together and do extraordinary things. Be a hidden hero today.
I'm blessed, got another day to breathe. I'm blessed, good health, family. Remind myself that each and every day I'm blessed.
On October 23rd, I Don't Know How But They Found Me, also known as IDKHOW.
Or I don't know how, or I don't know how to refer to this band.
That's right. They released their first full-length album, Razzmatazz, on Fearless Records. This band is a two-piece, which really makes them unique. It consists of bass player Dallin Weeks, who was a member of Panic at the Disco from 2009 to 2017.
Yeah, not a founding member, but still there
just
for
a touring
significant
member and recorded with
portion of time. After the founding.
And then there's drummer Ryan Seaman, who was the drummer for the band Falling in Reverse. So to me, this is like kind of like 21 Pilots, where it's unique just by the fact that it's a two-piece that's doing these
You're coming out of the gate
songs.
With a two-piece. So is it going to have the anthemic choruses? Is it going to have like, the pop, super heavy pop, like shimmery production or whatever? And I feel like they've got kind of like all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the band released their first single in August of 2016. It was titled Modern Day Kane. They followed up a month later with the second single, which was Choke. Rock Sound magazine described the duo as the hottest unsigned band in the world. Yeah. And a few months later, they signed with Fearless Records.
Yeah.
So, Modern Day Kane currently, just to kind of tell you where they land now, like that song currently just on Spotify is at 12 million and Choke is at 57 million just on Spotify.
They've taken off on streaming. Yeah. There's a lot of like buzz out there.
Well, and the band immediately released an EP that streeted in November of that same year, and it was called 1981 Extended Play.
Yep.
The EP went number 148 on Billboard 200. It went number 28 on current albums, number 26 on top rock albums, and it was number 14 at alternative albums. Yeah. It also went number 1 on Billboard's Heat Seeker chart.
That's what I was waiting for. I figured it'd be a number 1 album on Heat Seekers for sure.
So the song that we mentioned, Choke, was the single off of that EP, and it went number 13 on alternative radio and number 22 on rock. So, this is another one of those incredible stories, which we've been telling more and more recently, where the album was really kind of set up for massive success through not only organic growth, but like streaming and touring over like a fairly long period of time. And we're talking about from 2017, 18, all the way until the release of their first album now in 2020.
Yeah, just like seeing a little bit more of an indirect, like, everything taking place, like, despite you're working on this other thing, or you're like writing these songs, and boom, like your other stuff is blowing up, like from the EPs,
Well, it just makes, from a label standpoint, this really makes it easy to roll out a project.
Yeah.
Razzmatazz debuted at 122 on Billboard 200. It's number 11 on alternative albums, and it's number 22 on rock albums. It's 23 on vinyl albums, which is what we sell.
Yep.
And the band is currently number 10 on the emerging artist chart. So the first single off of this album is a song called Leave Me Alone, and it's currently sitting at number 11 on alternative, and it's number 18 on rock. So this is Leave Me Alone.
Fly a kite until you're tangled in the hanging tree.
Well, as you can tell from both of the songs we played, including Kiss Goodnight, which that's what we played at the opening.
Yeah.
This band has indie pop with new wave mixed in, glam rock.
Yeah. The electronic synth aspect, like, added to it, really adds a lot of dimension. It's really awesome.
Well, on that single, if you don't hear David Bowie's influence, you might need to revisit his catalog.
Especially right from the beginning. Yeah. And especially compared to like the Young American record that we just featured in the club last month.
When he started all the glam rock stuff. So, all the music is heavily influenced by the 80s on this album in general. Along with Bowie, you can hear, I hear The Cure, Joe Jackson, Queen, Prince, even modern day bands like, his band Panic at the Disco. Yeah. Like, it's all kind of infused into
There's a lot in there.
Yeah, Duran Duran. It was just depending on what song you're listening to, you can kind of like hear the seasoning of some of these bands from the early '80s. The album was produced by the duo with Tim Pagnotta, and he was the front man for a pop punk band from the turn of the century, Sugar Cult.
Sugar Cult.
You remember them?
It was the one I could not get into back in the day, but man, they were huge.
Well, they were not that successful at radio, but they were synced all over the place in the early 2000s. You couldn't almost watch a show or see a commercial without some kind of Sugar Cult song coming up.
Everybody I knew.
Video games, like everything.
Yeah, they loved that band. I was like, no, they're not one of the good pop punk bands. You got to listen to these other pop punk bands that I like.
Well, he's been producing all kinds of pop punk and power pop over the last few years. His production credits include bands like Echo Smith, the Strumbellas, New Politics, Blink 182, Walk the Moon, Saint Motel. I mean, that's just to name a few. I mean,
a lot of the more modern pop bands, like indie pop bands that are out there, and then of course like pop punk. His roots.
That's kind of his wheelhouse for sure.
Yeah.
He's also been really successful at songwriting. I mean, he has cuts with Switchfoot, Tokyo Police Club, Neon Trees, Plain White T's, St. Lucia, Dreamers, the Wombat album that we featured in our club. He wrote a song on that. Robert DeLong. I mean, so he's been really kind of crushing it post Sugar Cult, both as a producer and as a songwriter.
Yes.
Since he's a writer as well as a producer, he's also co-written on most of those albums that he produced.
Yeah. He becomes like another member of the band, like I always say, kind of.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that he even hear a little Queen in the album.
Yep.
But one of my favorite tracks, and I think probably a future single off of this album, is a song called "Need You Here."
Oh yeah.
You can hear Queen in the falsetto parts by Weeks on basically the chorus of the song. So just listen to that, and you'll hear the Queen influence for sure.
Place in this world that I'd rather be. If I can't be at home, then I'll send my apologies. Can't you stay right here forever, pretty please? I need you here with me. I need you here.
Well, if you can't tell, this album is really, really fun.
Yeah, and that's a song about Dallon's daughter, and I think about kind of living life on the road and not having her there with him, for a lot of those moments, and she actually sings on the track.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And that part that I was talking about with the Queen, that sounds like Queen that's post the second chorus.
Like the Bohemian Rhapsody
it's
harmonies.
so awesome because you almost don't even expect it because the rest of the song doesn't sound.
It's not featuring that kind of harmony throughout, but then where it's used, it's so cool.
It's really cool.
And it didn't stand out to me until you pointed it out, so I appreciate that.
Well, David McLaughlin from Kerrang! Magazine said that Razzmatazz comes at just the right time, and it is well worth the wait.
Yes. Super fun listen.
Yeah.
I keep putting this one on, which I was like, I just thought it was another pop record. I'm very dismissive of the pop bands, and then I listen over and over, and I'm like, oh, that's why. I get it now.
He even went on to say that, I don't know how, might not be changing the game exactly, but they're packing the kind of addictive dopamine-like qualities that'll make you want to keep pumping coins into the slot for another hit time after time again.
Absolutely.
We have this in a limited edition clear peach swirl vinyl.
Swirl. I want it.
We also have that breakout release that we mentioned, the 1981 extended play. We have a few of those left too, so we'll have those until they're out.
Don't know if it's on color vinyl or standard black, but we've got it.
Yeah.
Check it out.
We say, we sleep, we scried by land, we dig a pit beneath the sand, a place to keep the sun at bay. At dark, we rise and find our way with our faithful companion by our side. Put it all on the table and let it ride. Close to the drop off on our long slide. The land we left becomes a dream. The ghosts we knew, their eyes like steam. They leave some trails against the sky, all but invisible to the eye, without faithful companion by our side. Put it all on the table and let it ride. Close to the drop off on our long slide. Call off the search party, let mourners wail by the shore. Point to the spot where our ship disappeared. We're not coming home anymore.
On October 23rd, the Mountain Goats released the band's 19th studio album. And you heard that right, 19th. Getting Into Knives on Merge Records. Although the band is originally from California, they're now located in Durham, North Carolina. And we talked about North Carolina a little bit when Thad Cockrell was on the show a few weeks ago. But there's definitely this vibrant music scene in North Carolina.
We also talked about it with Brent Cobb's record.
Didn't
they record there?
Well, they did. They recorded in Durham.
Yep. But yeah, clearly like there's like some good talent in music coming out of there.
Right. The band was founded by John Darnielle. The band's name comes from a song, Yellow Goat, by Screamin' Jay Hawkins. And there were a number of years where the band is really just Darnielle.
Yeah, like his project with other players.
Yeah, so really each project is Darnielle and a different set of collaborators. Some may appear regular, but it's still really just Darnielle. And it's very similar to Clem Snide. If you remember, we covered that record, and you had frontman Eve Barsley, and through the years, the lineup just changes. Yeah. But it's really his outlet.
I think that his drummer John Worster has been there for a lot of them. I've noticed. His name,
maybe all of them. I'm not sure,
but he might be the only one.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like sometimes it does feel like more of a band, and then other times the lineup is fluid.
Yeah.
So the regular lineup consists of John Worster on drums that you just mentioned, who also plays in Superchunk.
Yep.
And occasionally with Bob Mould. It's the Superchunk is also
Dinosaur
on Merge.
Jr.
Yeah. And way back in 2010, the Mountain Goats signed there really due to that relationship with Worster. Oh. So they're label mates, and he really usually sits in both. So
I follow John on Twitter. He's really funny.
Well, the band also includes longtime collaborator, which is the bassist Peter Hughes. Matt Douglas is on keys and other instruments like accordion, guitar. I think he does some background vocals.
Yep.
And, Douglas has played with Josh Ritter and his Golden Messenger. He's recorded on their albums. He's actually a fairly sought after saxophone player.
Nice.
So you'll see a lot of his credits on a lot of bigger albums around town where they needed horns.
Because they needed a sax solo.
Sax.
Sexy sax solo.
Well, the album was number 162 on Billboard 200, and it was number 27 on Top Rock Albums.
Yeah. And this one had a lot of buzz coming out.
It did, and their first retail single to tease up the album was a track titled As Many Candles as Possible. Yep. It features Charles Hodges on a Hammond B3 organ, and he's a Memphis player who's played on albums from Al Green to Tom Jones, Boz Scaggs, and James Carr. So,
nice.
This is As Many Candles as Possible. So the album was recorded over a 6-day period at Sam Phillips Recording in Memphis, Tennessee, which is
the legendary.
Yeah, it's the same room where the Cramps tracked their 1980 debut. And that's, recording in Memphis is why they have like Charles Hodges on a track.
Yeah.
This album was produced by producer Matt Ross Spang.
You might have heard us say that name on this program once or twice.
Well, he also produced the band's 2019 release In League with Dragons, and we have talked about him on the podcast over the last year or two.
Yeah.
For one thing, he's a highly respected engineer. He's one of Dave Cobb's top guys for engineering.
He's the go-to.
I don't know if it's half of Dave Cobb's albums he's the engineer on, but he's definitely on a lot of ones that we've covered. Just to give you some examples, he's engineered Brent Cobb, which both those records that we talked about earlier in the show that Dave Cobb produced, he engineered.
Yep.
He has worked with Laurie McKenna, Mary Chapin Carpenter, The Revivalists, Drive-By Truckers, Anderson East, Chris Shiflett, The Lone Bellow, Dreamers. He was on Joy Williams' Front Porch album.
Yes.
Marcus King, Amanda Shires, Jason Isbell. As a matter of fact, Isbell brought him in to engineer and help produce Josh Ritter's album Fever Breaks, which was in our program that Isabel's produced.
That's awesome.
So, as a producer, he's worked with Margot Price, Lucira, the Almond Betts Band, Nikki Bloom, Charlie Crockett, and Foy Vance. And all of those things I've just been listing to you, all of those are in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, he must work on 5,000 albums in a year, I guess.
It's the same thing we always talk about with Dave Cobb. Like, I literally have no idea how they put out the volume at the level that they do. But they do. And
where do you find the time?
Literally in the last 2.5, maybe almost 3 years, like, he has engineered on or produced some of the best music coming out of Nashville.
Yep.
Lyrically, this album is more a collection of short stories. And in the past, Darnell has put out concept albums, or at the very least, let's just say they share like a central theme.
Yeah, which that's kind of what I get from when I listen to the Mountain Goats. It feels like a very like concept album heavy type of band.
Well, it is. I mean, even the last one that Ross Spang did that we mentioned, In League with Dragons, that was inspired by role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, why didn't I just say that whenever you said In League with Dragons? I was like, oh, sounds like something to do with D&D or like, and there we go.
It's really about that whole culture, like the whole subculture of that. And he has tons of albums that are kind of like that, where they dig really deep in on one concept and every song kind of ties to that. Yeah. Getting in the Nice really is probably a nice break from all that to me. It's the strongest album that Goats has released in years, and I think it's because it's a more traditional like story song record without the constraints of some like overly connective theme.
Sure.
So I think that's one reason why this album's connecting at the level it is. They've released a lyric video and a really great music video featuring the band as bobbleheads for the song Get Famous. But another really strong song off the album that I wanted to play is a song titled Rat Queen. This is Rat Queen.
Meek subjects by torchlight come to pay their respects as foretold by the ancient texts. Lines snaking down the sewer, reverent hush upon the crowd. One by one we approach the figure in the shroud. New dreams, new dreams for the Rat Queen. New dreams, new dreams for the Rat Queen. Great warm throbbing hum of the Undercity.
This album really is getting high marks from music journalists across the board.
This is going to win an award before the year's over.
Well, I think that you probably won't see an end-of-year list without this album on it.
At least those, end-of-year list for sure.
So American Songwriter, they said that practically every song is a standout. The new album is, in fact, the perfect primer for newcomers, as well as further affirmation for those that have followed them all along.
Lifelong fans, which this is a type of band that's like, I feel like they don't lose fans, really. I could be wrong, but Well,
seems like once you're in, you're in.
Probably. It definitely, you and I talked about this off mic, but it reminds me of some of the early alternative music from like the late 80s, early 90s. And a lot of that is because of his vocal execution.
Yep.
And
the recording, the actual recording sound.
Yeah.
Like it has a little bit of that feeling. Like the Violent Femmes, I keep getting kind of like there's a weird vibe in there that reminds me of those old Violent Femmes recordings.
Yeah, I think there's another band that starts with a V that you could tie them to, which is Velvet Underground. So, I mean, I think it's like there's a lot of these kind of those bands that really kind of influence this sound. But,
Absolutely.
I mean, 19 albums in, I mean, they've got their own thing going at this point.
19.
So, yeah. Well, we have this album on a limited edition double vinyl, and it's in gatefold packaging. So it's a nice presentation of this record.
Nice packaging.
Summer sun, will I by the lake till the evening comes? I run my fingers through your sun-streaked hair, baby, that's the power of prayer. Summer night, summer's in the air. I stack the tables with the chairs. It's closing time, then you're standing there, baby, that's the power of prayer.
So on October 23rd, Bruce Springsteen released Letter to You on Columbia Records. And this is his 20th album of his illustrious career.
Yeah.
It's the first album with his backing band. I mentioned this earlier, the E Street Band, since the release of High Hopes. I think I said 2012, but it was actually 2014 when it was released. And he hasn't even really been with them much outside of like just personally.
Sure, it's been a little
since
bit more
the River
solo.
tour in 2016, which that was a really extensive worldwide tour.
Yep.
But after 2016, they broke from the tour, and that's the last time he's been with the E Street Band.
Yep.
One of the reasons for this,
he stayed busy.
Yeah, he has been ridiculously busy.
Yeah.
His memoir, Born to Run, was released in September of 2016. That also came with a companion album project called Chapter and Verse. We actually have both of these in the store. Then he did the Springsteen on Broadway production that kept selling out. I mean, tickets were going in the thousands. You would read stories about a ticket going for like $8,000.
Yes.
But it ran on Broadway for 236 shows because they kept having to add legs to it because it would
sell out so much that they knew there was more
and so
demand.
That ended up running 236 different dates from October 2017 through December 2018. And then, of course, he released the companion album for the Broadway show, and he also launched a Netflix special about that show.
Which was awesome.
So it's all awesome.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to 2019. Last year, Springsteen released his solo album, Western Stars, and then he co-directed the feature film that went with that album.
Companion piece.
So, now he's back. He's back regular to do just a regular album with his band. It's 2020, and here he is.
And we're on Bruce's 20th.
And honestly, and I mean, we're going to talk about this later, but this is arguably his best album in years. Letter to You debuted at #1 on current album sales. It was #1 on vinyl albums, #1 on top rock albums, tastemaker albums, Americana folk albums. It was #2 overall on Billboard 200, and it was #1 on the OCC in the UK. The first single off this album is the title track, Letter to You.
Which is,
and that song
one of the great ones.
Just took #1 at AAA radio.
What a surprise.
And it's been 18 years since his last #1 at that radio format, and the chart has only been around for 24 years. AAA is, when you kind of look at all radio, it's a relatively young format. And
That is the longest gap between number ones in the chart's history.
Wow.
So it's also number 28 on Rock Airplay. It's number 34 at Hot Rock and Alternative Songs. So this is the amazing song, Letter to You.
Tried to summon all that my heart finds true and send it in my letter to you. Things I found out through hard times and good.
So this album was recorded live in the studio, no demos.
That's always the best.
If you know much about Springsteen, or if you've watched like his documentary The Promise, then you know that he not only writes a lot of songs for an album, but notoriously he demos and even records. I mean, he pretty much flushes out.
It's all done.
Really good demos. I mean, they're arguably they're almost ready for the album. But this album was different. One of the things I think that kind of made this different is, in April, a friend of Springsteen's, George Tice, he'd been in a band together in the late 60s called the Castiles.
Yeah.
He passed away. There's also been, a couple of deaths in the E Street Band over the last 20 years.
Yep.
One was Danny Federici. Federici, excuse me. He passed away in 2008. He was a key player. Then, Clarence Clemens, who was the saxophone player and very distinctive part of the E Street sound.
Oh, yeah.
He passed away in 2011. And so this album kind of deals with themes of regret, loss, aging, dying.
The process of life.
It's just really it's personal lyrically, but it also is like a celebration of all these people he's been creating with for so many years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, like, in the positive sense of all those things.
So, they recorded this at Bruce Springsteen's home studio over, really, the initial recordings were like over a 5-day period. I think I read somewhere, like, all of it, even overdubs and everything, was done in about 2 weeks.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. Ron Anelio produced, and he's produced multiple Springsteen albums, including, like, his last 2. So he's been, kind of collaborating with Springsteen for a while. Like I said, the band had really never played live in the studio before. So
I wonder what really led to that, like changing it up like that.
Well, one thing I read from Springsteen is he was just talking about just the time and place that they find themselves in. It just led to, like, even from the song standpoint, he said he'd never had songs he had like severe writer's block before this album,
right.
But then once it broke loose, he had never had songs just kind of flow this freely.
And they recorded this before pandemic, like lockdown, I believe. So it wasn't like we couldn't get together. I mean, they were in the room together doing live recordings,
Mm-hmm. Well, Apple TV produced a feature-length documentary on this album. It documents the creation of the album, of course, but it also documents this long-time collaborative process that he's been in with the E Street Band. Springsteen says on the doc, he says, "I'm in the middle of a 45-year conversation with men and women I'm surrounded by. The years of playing together have created an efficiency in the studio. Ideas tumble around the room, confusion often reigns, and then suddenly, dynamite." I mean, of course, he said it really cool, like, probably like, "I'm in the middle of this 45-year conversation."
Yeah.
I mean,
super gravelly
so
voice.
You need to go, like, watch the trailer at least, and you can hear him say that. But the album really feels like music that Springsteen and the E Street Band, were even making at the beginning of their, time together, from the 70s, really some of his biggest albums. And I think on top of like some of these connective points that we've already mentioned, like another reason that I think it even sounds that way is that 3 of these songs were even originally written in preparation for his 1973 album, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Yeah, and I think like they were trying to kind of recreate that like classic, nostalgic, you know, around the like Darkness on the Edge of Town, you know, like those sounds there, the energy that was in that music, like, because it does really feel, not to say throwback or like, you know, use that term loosely, but like it feels like a throwback to old Bruce Springsteen albums.
Yeah. Well, and I think those two albums in particular are really interesting bookends looking at that album. And if you watch that documentary, The Promise, and you see how labor intensive and how hard they worked to get the songs where they wanted them for that record.
Yeah.
And then you come in here where it's literally like, not only did the writing process flow, but he literally created it live with the band. Yeah. And that's just where they've come over 45 years.
Yeah, it says that they've played together so long now that they just kind of like get in the studio and the magic happens.
Yeah. Well, one of the songs that he released as a retail single to help set up this album, it was the second release that he did. It's got a video as well. It's a song called Ghost. It's really kind of a rock and roll love letter to some of his lost bandmates. It went number 5 on Rock Digital Songs. It wasn't a radio track. It was just, you know, released digitally. But this is the song called Ghost.
I hear the sound of your guitar coming from the mystic far, stone and the gravel in your voice, come in my dreams and I rejoice. It's your ghost moving through the night, spirit filled with light. I need you by my side. Your love and I come alive. I can feel the blood shiver in my bones. I'm alive, and I'm out here on my own. I'm alive, and I'm coming home.
So, you know, this is literally one of the best reviewed albums that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Glowing all over the place.
anywhere you look, it's just stellar reviews. I mean, if they've
Yeah.
got rating systems, it's at the very top.
Yeah.
But
And are you going to find someone to say something bad about Bruce Springsteen? I mean, I'm sure they're out there.
but there's a difference between like maybe being a little bit cautious about being too critical,
Or critical,
and
yeah.
being this
Yeah.
over the top, like it's an amazing album.
I think
So,
everybody
I think the
wanted a
consensus
little
is
taste.
in.
Yeah.
And, you know, and this is
Something classic.
well, Uncapped Magazine said, just as an example, they said the boss looks back and strides ahead. Just talking about that tie-in to the older sound.
Yep.
NME said that the album's a powerful synthesis of past and present. Letter to You shows us the strength that can be found in sorrow. The result is Springsteen's finest album since 2002's The Rising. AV Club said it's a musical transfiguration that never stops being impressive, no matter how many times he's pulled it off through the decades. Paste Magazine said Springsteen's songwriting here ranks among the best ever, yet Letter to You is a continual reminder of how good his band is.
For the listener, I feel like for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, like any of us that have been, you know, around for a while now, like
He's just part of the cultural fabric.
it's part of like your build musically. Like you have Bruce Springsteen inside of you if you grew up listening to classic rock and music, and like those classic Christmas songs that come around every year during the holidays, like Burl Ives and like the White Christmases, like all those. This is where I feel like Bruce Springsteen just lives in that canon of like he is ingrained in our music history, along with like the most foundational pieces. Bruce Springsteen is kind of like the godfather of classic
and he's obviously like
rock and roll.
He's super important even for other creators of music and art.
He brought so many people, or he paved the way for so many others.
Well, I think like everything Springsteen does, I think his legacy will be one of consistent excellence, excellence to craft, faithfulness to songwriting and storytelling, and as we're even seeing in this album, like a loyalty to his creative community.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the only thing that I can even parallel anything with like to Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Yep. And we just don't have that many examples of this in music. This is an absolute must listen, must own for 2020. Yes. This may be the album of the year.
Yep.
We have this album in a double vinyl LP pressing, 140 gram, in a gatefold jacket with a booklet and an etching on side D.
Yep.
We also have so many Springsteen albums in the store.
We can't keep up with them.
Yeah, we have collector series like where you can grab multiple album sets. We have books bundled with albums. Like there's just a lot of Springsteen in the store.
Yeah, you can get that chapter and verse that we mentioned earlier with the album and the book together.
Yeah. So check it out, blindtigerrecordclub.com. Just type in Bruce Springsteen and you'll have a lot of albums to choose from. Well, that's the November Spotlight album and some of our new store editions for the month from Blind Tiger Record Club. Some other titles that you might want to check out that we've recently added. We've gotten several of Sam Cooke's reissues. So you can go type in Sam Cooke and just look at some of the albums we have for him.
Change is going to come to our vinyl store.
Right. That's right. Nickel Creek has issued some, issued for the first time on vinyl some of their early
that's
releases.
Chris Thiele, right?
Yes.
The mandolin / freaking impresario, like guitar, whatever. He's amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
We have Beastie Boys double LP, which is basically their greatest hits. We have the 50th anniversary of Elton John's 1970 self-titled album in a gold vinyl.
Gold Elton.
And considering that it's the 16th, you should all be looking at our holiday section. You should go to the store. We've got it right at the top. But we've added tons of great holiday albums like Phil Spector's A Christmas for You, which we talked about on the last show.
We did.
We've got albums from artists like Casey Musgraves, The Temptations, Neil Diamond, Vince Guaraldi, Aretha Franklin.
Mariah
Classics
Carey.
by Johnny Cash. Yes, we do have
Say it.
Kenny Rogers, Johnny Mathis, just so many more. We even have a new Christmas album by the Goo Goo Dolls. So go check out the holidays. Or you could go back to the old 97s. We have one by them too. Ooh. But if you want to find out more about any of these albums, just head to blindtigerrecordclub.com and go to the homepage. You can read about the albums we talked about on the show, or you can click on the holiday section and take a look at what we've got set up for Christmas. If you sign up for a membership at blindtigerrecordclub.com, you can pick from one of the albums that we introduced you to on the last show to start your membership. And then after that, you get vinyl just like that delivered to your door every month. We do have international memberships available, so you can join from anywhere in the world. Be sure to check the website on Black Friday and Cyber Week to get seasonal deals. And, it's a great way to get a gift that could surprise a music lover in your life. Just get them great vinyl. Please remember our sponsor, World Vision. Click on the World Vision button at blindtigerrecordclub.com and fight the spread and impact of COVID-19. Be a hidden hero and donate today. If you send your receipt of $25 or more to vinyl at blindtigerrecordclub.com, that's vinyl at blindtigerrecordclub.com, we will send you a $10 gift card, and you can use that for anything in the store, or you can get another gift for Christmas for somebody.
Yes, you can.
So please follow the podcast, like us, leave reviews and comments.
Leave
they really
reviews.
Help. Tell your friends about the show. Email Lightning100. Tell them that you're enjoying the show. Stay up to date on all that we're doing by signing up for our email list at the website. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Most importantly, keep coming back. We want to thank Finnegan Bell for the use of our song For a Dying Man as our show's theme song, and Lewis Bryce for the use of the song Blessed in our World Vision spot. And thank you to Lightning 100 for always supporting local art and events, and even shows like ours. Until next time, keep the wax spinning.
1,000 guitars, 1,000 guitars. 1,000 guitars, 1,000 guitars. 1,000 guitars, 1,000 guitars. 1,000 guitars, 1,000 guitars.